I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd discover her husband's affair through a car window. But there I was, standing in our own driveway at 3 in the afternoon, grocery bags slipping from my numb fingers as I watched Marcus's head disappear below the dashboard of his BMW. Lisa, our 24-year-old maid, was straddling him in the driver's seat, her uniform hiked up around her waist, her dark hair cascading over her bare shoulders. The organic tomatoes I'd carefully selected rolled across the concrete. One split open, its juice spreading like blood. I should have screamed, should have yanked open that car door and confronted them both. Instead, I stood frozen, watching my marriage crumble through tinted glass. Marcus's hands were gripping Lisa's hips with a passion I hadn't felt from him in months, maybe years. The way he touched her, hungry and desperate. When was the last time he'd looked at me like that? I backed away slowly, my heels clicking against the driveway. Neither of them noticed. They were too lost in each other, too consumed by their betrayal to sense my presence. Inside the house, I poured myself a glass of wine with shaking hands. The Chardonnay tasted bitter, but I drank it anyway, trying to wash away the image burned into my retinas. How long had this been going on? How many times had I smiled at Lisa, thanked her for keeping our home spotless, while she was sleeping with my husband behind my back? The questions circled my mind like vultures. By evening, I couldn't stand the silence of our empty house. Marcus had texted some excuse about working late. Of course he was. I grabbed my purse and drove to Meridian, the wine bar downtown, where I'd never run into anyone from our social circle. The place was dimly lit, all exposed brick and amber lighting. I claimed a corner booth and ordered another Chardonnay, hoping the alcohol would numb the ache in my chest. Olivia. I looked up to find Eric standing beside my table, his tall frame silhouetted against the bar's soft glow. Marcus's business partner looked impeccable, as always, navy suit jacket thrown over his arm, white shirt rolled up to reveal strong forearms, dark hair slightly mussed from the day. Eric, I managed a smile that probably fooled no one. What brings you here? Client meeting ran long. Figured I'd grab a drink before heading home. His green eyes studied my face with concerning intensity. Mind if I join? Look like you could use some company. I gestured to the empty seat across from me. Eric slid into the booth, close enough that I caught his cologne, something woody and masculine that made my pulse quicken. Rough day, he asked, signaling the waitress. You could say that. I took another sip of wine, aware of how his presence seemed to fill the small space between us. Eric had always been different from Marcus's other associates, where they were loud and boastful. He was quietly confident, where they ignored me at company events. He'd always made a point to ask about my photography, my interests, treating me like more than just Marcus's wife. Want to talk about it? His voice was gentle, inviting. I almost laughed. How could I explain that I'd discovered my husband's affair just hours ago? That I felt invisible, unwanted, like a ghost haunting my own life. Just feeling a bit lost lately, I said instead. Eric leaned forward, his elbows on the table. I find that hard to believe. A woman like you should never feel lost. But the way he said it, low and sincere, sent heat spreading through my chest. When was the last time Marcus had spoken to me with such reverence? A woman like me, I challenged, needing to hear more. Beautiful, intelligent, talented. His eyes never left mine. I've always admired your photography. That series you did last year of the abandoned theaters, it was haunting. I stared at him. Marcus had barely glanced at those photos. You remember that. I remember everything about you, Olivia. The admission hung between us like a confession. My breath caught as I realized what he was saying. What had always been simmering beneath our polite interactions at dinner parties and business events. Eric had been watching me, wanting me. I started, but he held up a hand. I know you're married. I know this is complicated. He ran a hand through his dark hair. But I also know Marcus doesn't appreciate what he has. And my heart hammered against my ribs. What makes you say that? The way he talks about you. Or rather, the way he doesn't. Eric's jaw tightened. If you were mine, I'd never stop talking about you. I'd make sure the whole world knew how lucky I was. The wine was making me dizzy. Or maybe it was the intensity in his eyes. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine where they rested around my wine glass. I've wanted to say it for 2 years, Olivia. Every time I see you at those boring company parties, smiling and playing the perfect wife while he ignores you. But his touch was electric, sending shockwaves up my arm. I should pull away, should remind him that I was a married woman, that this was dangerous territory. Instead, I let his fingers trace across my knuckles. He's having an affair. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Eric's hand stilled on mine. What? I caught him today with our maid. I laughed bitterly. Such a cliché, isn't it? Anger flashed across Eric's features. That bastard, at 24 years old, probably half my dress size. I drained the rest of my wine. I stood there watching them in his car like some pathetic voyeur. You're not pathetic. Eric's grip on my hand tightened. You're incredible. And he's an idiot for not seeing it. The sincerity in his voice nearly undid me. When was the last time someone had defended me with such fierce protectiveness? I should go home, I whispered, though I made no move to leave. Should you? Eric's thumb traced circles on my palm. What's waiting for you there? More lies, more pretending, more feeling invisible in my own marriage. Let me drive you home, Eric said softly. You've had too much to drink. It was true. The wine had gone straight to my head. Or maybe it was his proximity. The way his cologne wrapped around me like a caress. Okay, I heard myself say. Eric helped me from the booth, his hand warm on the small of my back as he guided me outside. The night air was cool against my flushed skin. At his car, he paused, his hand still resting against my spine. Olivia, I turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close we were standing. His eyes searched mine in the amber glow of the streetlight. Whatever you decide to do about Marcus, you deserve better. You deserve to be cherished. The word hung between us, loaded with promise and possibility. I found myself leaning closer, drawn by his gravitational pull. This was dangerous. This was wrong. This was the first time I'd felt alive in years. "We should go," I whispered, but my feet remained planted on the sidewalk. Eric's hand was still pressed against my back, his warmth seeping through the thin fabric of my dress. "We should," he agreed, but he didn't move either. The space between us crackled with electricity. I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and masculine that made me want to lean closer. When was the last time Marcus had made me feel this dizzy just by standing near me? Olivia. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. I tilted my face up to his, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me right there under the streetlight. Instead, he stepped back and opened the passenger door of his sleek black Audi. "Let me get you home safe," he said, his voice rougher than before. The drive to my house was torture. Eric's hand rested on the gear shift, so close to my thigh, I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Every time he changed gears, his knuckles brushed against my leg, sending sparks through me. "Tell me about your photography," he said, breaking the charged silence. I found myself talking about my abandoned dreams, the series I'd started but never finished. "I used to photograph moments of truth," I said, "those split seconds when people let their masks slip, like tonight." Eric glanced at me, and I caught the intensity in his dark eyes. "Yes," I breathed, "exactly like tonight." And when we pulled into my driveway, Marcus's BMW wasn't there. Still with Lisa, probably. The realization should have hurt more than it did, but Eric's presence beside me dulled the ache. "Thank you," I said, making no move to get out. "For listening. For everything, Olivia." Eric turned in his seat to face me fully. "Can I see you again? Not like this, I mean for coffee, to talk." I knew I should say no. I was married, even if that marriage was crumbling. But looking into Eric's honest face, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years' hope. "Tomorrow morning." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "There's a little cafe on Elm Street. Rosie's, 10 o'clock, Eric said immediately. I nodded and finally forced myself out of the car. As I walked to my front door, I could feel his eyes on me, and I found myself swaying my hips just a little more than usual. The next morning, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes. Finally, I chose a fitted red sweater that hugged my curves and dark jeans that made my legs look endless. When I caught myself applying an extra coat of mascara, I had to laugh. When was the last time I dressed for anyone but myself? Eric was already waiting at Rosie's, looking devastatingly handsome in a navy button-down that brought out his eyes. He stood when he saw me, and I didn't miss the way his gaze traveled appreciatively over my outfit. You look beautiful, he said simply, pulling out my chair. Over steaming cups of coffee, we talked about everything and nothing. Eric told me about his work as an architect, how he designed spaces that brought people together. I found myself leaning forward, captivated by his passion, the way his hands moved as he spoke. "What about you and Marcus?" I finally asked. "How do you know him?" Eric's expression grew guarded. "College roommates. We stayed in touch, but—" He paused, stirring his coffee unnecessarily. "I never liked how he treated you at those dinner parties, like you were an accessory." My heart fluttered. He'd been watching me, noticing. "And you?" I asked. "Any Mrs. Eric I should know about?" He shook his head. "Divorced 2 years ago. She said I was too intense, too focused on work." His eyes met mine. Maybe I just hadn't met the right person yet. The implication hung between us, like a bridge neither of us was quite ready to cross. We started meeting regularly. Coffee became long walks through the park, where Eric would point out architectural details I'd never noticed. His fingers would brush mine as he guided my attention to a particular cornice, or the way light played across a building's facade. "You see everything so differently," I told him one afternoon as we sat by the fountain. "It's like you're showing me a whole new world." "You do the same for me," Eric said softly. "The way you describe light and shadow, composition, it's poetry." I felt myself blushing under his intense gaze. I should get back soon. Marcus will be home, but I made no move to leave. And Eric made no move to suggest I should. His phone buzzed with a text. As he glanced at it, I caught a glimpse of the contact name. Olivia read. My breath caught. When had he added the heart emoji to my contact? "Sorry," he said, quickly putting the phone away. "Work thing." But I'd seen the truth. Whatever this was between us, it was affecting him too. That night, as I lay in bed next to Marcus, who'd come home smelling faintly of Lisa's perfume, my phone lit up with a text from Eric. "Thank you for today. You make everything brighter." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Sweet dreams, Eric." The texting became constant. Good morning messages that made me smile over my coffee. Funny observations about his day that had me laughing in grocery store aisles. Photos of beautiful buildings with notes like, "Reminded me of how you described light in your photography." I found myself checking my phone obsessively, my heart racing every time his name appeared on my screen. Marcus never noticed. He was too busy with his own secret messages. Things came to a head on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Eric had offered to drive me home from our coffee date when the weather turned. In his car, with rain drumming on the roof, the atmosphere felt charged, intimate. "Olivia," Eric said, his voice strained. "I need to tell you something." I turned to face him, and the raw emotion in his eyes made my breath catch. "I'm falling for you," he said simply. "I know the timing is terrible. I know you're married, but I can't pretend anymore. Every moment we spend together, every text, every look, you're all I think about." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Eric, I know I shouldn't feel this way," he continued, his hand reaching for mine. "But when I see how he treats you, how he takes you for granted, God, Olivia, you deserve so much more." His thumb traced circles on my palm. Just like that first night at the wine bar, I found myself leaning closer, drawn by the magnetic pull I'd been fighting for weeks. I should go, I whispered, but I didn't pull my hand away. Should you? Eric echoed his words from that first night, and suddenly we were both remembering the electricity between us, the promise of something beautiful and dangerous. His free hand came up to cup my cheek, and I melted into his touch. We were inches apart now, his breath warm against my lips. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. But I couldn't. Instead, I found myself whispering, "Don't. Hit that like button if you believe in second chances." Just as our lips were about to meet, my phone rang shrilly in the silence. Marcus's name flashed on the screen, shattering the moment like glass. Eric pulled back immediately, running a hand through his hair. I stared at the phone, torn between answering and throwing it out the window. "You should take that," Eric said, his voice rough with unfulfilled desire. I looked at him one more time, his hair mussed, his eyes dark with want, and knew that everything had just changed between us. There was no going back now. I stared at Marcus's name flashing on my screen, my heart still racing from Eric's almost kiss. The ringtone felt like an alarm, jolting me back to reality. "Answer it," Eric said quietly, stepping back but not taking his eyes off me. I swiped to accept. "Hi, honey, where are you?" Marcus's voice carried that familiar edge of impatience. "I'm home early, and you're not here." Eric watched me, his jaw clenched. I could see him processing the casual cruelty in Marcus's tone. No greeting, no warmth, just demand. "I'm at the farmer's market," I lied smoothly, surprising myself. "Getting ingredients for dinner. I'll be home in 20 minutes. "Fine, I'm hungry." The line went dead. Eric shook his head. He doesn't even say goodbye. "It's fine," I said automatically, then caught myself. Why was I defending him? Eric stepped closer again, his hand finding mine. "It's not fine, Olivia. None of this is fine." He was right, and suddenly, I didn't want to go home to Marcus's demands and cold silences. I wanted to stay here with Eric, in this bubble where someone actually saw me. "I have to go," I whispered, but I squeezed his hand. "When can I see you again?" The urgency in his voice made my pulse quicken. "Tomorrow, Marcus has a late meeting." Another lie that felt too easy on my tongue. Eric smiled, that devastating smile that made my knees weak. "Text me." Driving home, I caught myself checking my reflection in the rearview mirror. My lips were still tingling, my cheeks flushed. I looked alive, more alive than I'd felt in years. Marcus barely looked up when I walked in, already loosening his tie. "What's for dinner?" "Pasta primavera," I said, setting the grocery bags on the counter. "How was your day?" "Busy." He poured himself a scotch without offering me anything. "I might have to work late tomorrow. Big client presentation." I bit back a smile. "Perfect. That's fine. I'll probably meet Lisa for drinks anyway." It was fascinating how easily the lies came now. Each one felt like a small rebellion, a tiny crack in the perfect wife facade I'd maintained for so long. That night, as Marcus snored beside me, I texted Eric, "Tomorrow can't come soon enough." His response came immediately. "I've been thinking about what almost happened today." Almost. typed back, feeling bold in the darkness. Next time, there won't be any interruptions. I pressed the phone to my chest, my heart hammering. Next time. The promise of it sent heat racing through my veins. The next evening, I told Marcus I was meeting Lisa at that wine bar downtown. Instead, I found myself in Eric's office after hours, the city lights twinkling beyond his floor-to-ceiling windows. "You came," he said, standing from behind his desk. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. The sight of his forearms made my mouth go dry. "I said I would, I know, but part of me thought you might change your mind." He walked toward me slowly, like he was afraid I might bolt. "I almost did," I admitted, 3 times on the way over. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "What changed your mind?" "You," I whispered. "This feeling. I can't stop thinking about it." His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs tracing my cheekbones. "Olivia, if we do this, I know what it means," I said, surprising myself with my certainty. "I know there's no going back. Are you sure?" Instead of answering, I rose on my tiptoes and kissed him. The kiss was everything our almost kiss had promised, and more. Soft at first, tentative, then deeper as Eric's arms came around me, pulling me against him. I melted into him, months of loneliness and longing pouring out in that single moment. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "God, Olivia," Eric murmured against my forehead. "I've wanted to do that for so long." "How long?" I asked, though part of me was afraid of the answer. "Since that first night at the wine bar, maybe even before that." His confession sent a thrill through me. All those dinner parties, watching Marcus ignore you, take you for granted. I kept thinking how lucky he was and how blind. I pulled back to look at him. "Eric, I know it's complicated. I know he's my friend, but Olivia, what we have, this connection, it's real." He was right. What I felt with Eric was more real than anything I'd experienced with Marcus in years, maybe ever. Over the following weeks, I became an expert at deception. I learned to time my texts perfectly, to clear my browser history, to explain away the new lightness in my step. "You seem different lately," Marcus observed one morning over coffee. "Happier." I nearly choked on my latte. "Do I?" "Yeah, it's nice." He actually smiled at me, the first genuine smile I'd gotten from him in months. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Maybe it's the yoga classes," I lied smoothly. I'd started using yoga as cover for my afternoon meetings with Eric. "Keep it up then," Marcus said, already turning back to his phone. If only he knew that my newfound glow came from stolen hours in Eric's arms, from passionate kisses in his car, from text messages that made me blush in grocery store aisles. Eric and I developed our own secret language, a casual touch during dinner parties that lingered just a moment too long. Meaningful glances across crowded rooms, the brush of his fingers when he handed me a drink. "You're playing with fire," I told him one afternoon as we lay tangled in hotel sheets. We'd started meeting at a boutique hotel downtown neutral territory that felt safer than his office, or, God forbid, Are you complaining?" Eric asked, trailing kisses down my neck. "No," I gasped, as he found that spot that made me arch against him. "Never." "Good," he murmured, "because I'm addicted to this fire. But ladies, if this is making your heart race, show me some love with a like." But living a double life was exhausting. I found myself checking my phone constantly, deleting messages, creating elaborate alibis. The thrill of our secret was intoxicating, but the stress was starting to show. I made a mistake during one of our dinner parties. Marcus was telling a story about his latest client when Eric caught my eye across the table. The look he gave me, full of heat and promise, made me flush deeply. "Are you feeling all right?" Lisa asked, noticing my sudden color. "You look flushed." "Just warm," I managed. But I caught Marcus studying me with new interest. Later, as I was clearing dishes, Marcus cornered me in the kitchen. "You and Eric seem friendly lately." My hands stilled on the wine glasses. "We've always been friendly, have you?" His tone was casual, but there was something underneath it. Suspicion, jealousy. "I just noticed you two talking a lot tonight." He was asking about the wine pairing, I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "You know how he is about his wines." Marcus nodded slowly, but his eyes remained sharp. "Right, of course." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, Marcus's breathing heavy beside me. Had I been too obvious? Was our secret already unraveling? My phone buzzed softly. A text from Eric. "Sweet dreams, beautiful." I smiled in the darkness, typing back, "Already dreaming of you." The danger only made it more thrilling, but I was starting to realize that this double life couldn't last forever. Something would have to give. I just didn't know it would happen sooner than I thought. The first sign something was wrong came 3 days later. I was rushing out for what Marcus thought was another yoga class when he stopped me at the door. "Your scarf smells different," he said casually, fingering the silk fabric around my neck. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Different how?" "Like cologne, not mine." His eyes searched my face. "Must be from the yoga studio. All those people in close quarters." I forced a laugh. You know how studios can be. Everyone wearing different fragrances. But as I drove to meet Eric at our usual hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus knew more than he was letting on. When I arrived, Eric was already waiting in the lobby, looking devastating in a charcoal suit. "You look tense," he murmured as we stepped into the elevator. "Marcus is starting to notice things." I leaned against the mirrored wall, watching the floor numbers climb. He commented on cologne on my scarf. Eric's jaw tightened. "We need to be more careful." In the hotel room, his hands found my shoulders, kneading the tension there. "Maybe we should take a break. Let things cool down." No, the word came out fiercer than I intended. "I need this. I need you." He pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine with desperate hunger. "God, Olivia, what are we doing to ourselves?" "Surviving," I whispered against his lips, but survival was becoming increasingly complicated. Over the next week, Marcus's behavior grew stranger. He started asking detailed questions about my yoga classes, which instructor, what poses we practiced, who else attended. I found myself creating elaborate stories about imaginary classmates and their imaginary problems. Then I discovered he'd been checking my phone. I only realized it because I'd left it charging in the kitchen and returned to find it slightly out of place. My blood ran cold. Had he seen Eric's messages? I'd been careful to delete them immediately, but what if I'd missed one? That evening, Marcus was unusually attentive. He made dinner, opened an expensive bottle of wine, asked about my day with the kind of focused interest that felt more like an interrogation than conversation. "How's Lisa doing?" I asked, testing the waters. "I haven't seen much of her lately. She's busy." His answer was clipped, working on some new project. Interesting. In the past, Marcus had always been eager to share details about Lisa's work, her life, her thoughts on everything from politics to pasta sauce. Now he seemed almost protective of information about her. 2 days later, while Marcus was at work, I decided to do some investigating of my own. I found hotel receipts in his briefcase, not just one or two, but dozens, dating back months. The Meridian Hotel, the same hotel where Eric and I had been meeting. My hands shook as I photographed the receipts with my phone. Marcus and Lisa had been using the same place for their affair. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so terrifying. That afternoon, Eric texted, "Can't meet today. Lisa wants to discuss some business matters." I stared at the message, a cold dread settling in my stomach. Lisa, why was she suddenly interested in business with Eric? As far as I knew, their only connection was through Marcus and me, unless she suspected something. I called Eric immediately. "What kind of business?" "I don't know yet." She was vague on the phone. His voice sounded strained. "Olivia, I think we need to talk, really talk, about what we're doing, where this is going. Not over the phone. Tomorrow night. The wine bar where it all started." And after we hung up, I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot, trying to process everything. Marcus was monitoring me. Lisa was investigating Eric. The walls were closing in from all sides. That evening, Marcus announced he was planning a dinner party for the weekend. "Just the four of us," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You, me, Eric, and Lisa. Like old times." "That sounds lovely." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. I thought we could do something special. Maybe play a game. Truth or dare, perhaps. His eyes glittered with something dangerous. "Remember how we used to play that in college?" I remembered. Marcus had always been ruthless at truth or dare, pushing boundaries, exposing secrets. The thought of playing that game now, with everything we all had to hide, made me nauseous. "We're adults now, Marcus. Don't you think we're past party games?" "Are we?" He stepped closer, studying my face. "Sometimes I think we're all still playing games. The question is whether we're playing the same one." That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. The house settling, Marcus shifting beside me, my phone buzzing with what turned out to be a spam message. I felt like I was trapped in a maze, with walls closing in from every direction. The next morning brought a text from Lisa. We should talk. Just us girls. Coffee this afternoon. I stared at the message for a full minute before responding. Sure. The cafe on 5th Street. Perfect. 3 p.m. I spent the morning in a state of barely controlled panic. What did Lisa know? What did she suspect? And more importantly, what was she planning to do about it? By the time I arrived at the cafe, my nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Lisa was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She looked perfectly composed, which somehow made everything worse. Olivia, she smiled as, you look tired. Everything okay? Just busy. You know how it is. Do I? She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Actually, I'm not sure I do know how it is for you lately. You seem different. Different how? Distracted, secretive. She took a sip of her coffee. Marcus is worried about you. The mention of Marcus made my stomach clench. He's worried. He thinks you might be having an affair. The words hit me like a physical blow. I fought to keep my expression neutral, but I could feel blood draining from my face. That's ridiculous. Is it? Lisa's smile was sharp now. Because if you were, I'd understand. Marriage can be challenging. People look for connection elsewhere. There was something in her tone, something knowing that made my skin crawl. Did she know about Marcus? About us? About everything? Lisa, I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything. She stood up, leaving her coffee barely touched. I'm just saying that secrets have a way of coming out. Usually when you least expect them. As she walked away, I sat frozen in my chair, watching through the window as she got into her car and drove off. The game was definitely changing. The question was whether Eric and I could survive what came next. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Looking forward to our dinner party tomorrow. It's going to be very revealing. I closed my eyes, finally understanding that our time was running out. Tomorrow night, everything would come crashing down, and despite the terror that thought brought, part of me felt something unexpected. Relief. Maybe it was time to stop playing games. The next evening, I stood in my kitchen preparing dinner with hands that trembled slightly as I arranged the place settings. Marcus had insisted on hosting Eric for dinner, claiming he wanted to get to know my friend better. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd chosen a simple black dress that hugged my curves without being obvious about it. When Eric arrived at 7 sharp, looking devastatingly handsome in a navy blazer, his eyes found mine immediately across the room. Olivia. His voice was warm, but I caught the underlying tension. Eric, thank you for coming. I accepted his kiss on the cheek, breathing in his familiar cologne. Marcus appeared from the living room, scotch already in hand. Eric, great to see you again. His smile was too bright, too forced. Dinner started pleasantly enough. I served the pasta I'd made, poured wine, kept the conversation flowing about work and travel. But underneath the surface, Electricity crackled between Eric and me with every shared glance, every accidental brush of fingers when passing dishes. Marcus watched it all with calculating eyes. "So, Eric," Marcus said as I cleared the main course, "you seem to be spending a lot of time with my wife lately." The question hung in the air like smoke. Eric set down his wine glass carefully. "Olivia and I have become good friends. She's remarkable company." "Remarkable," Marcus repeated slowly. "That's an interesting choice of words." I felt the atmosphere shift, becoming charged with danger. "Marcus, what are you getting at?" "Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm getting at, Olivia." Marcus stood up, walking to the sideboard where he'd apparently hidden his phone. "Should I show him the photos? Or would you prefer to explain yourself?" My blood ran cold. "What photos?" "The ones of you and Eric leaving the Meridian Hotel together last Thursday. Or maybe the ones of you kissing in his car outside that little cafe on 5th Street. Eric's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he stood up slowly, his full height imposing in our dining room. "Marcus, if you have something to say it directly." "What I have to say is that you've been fucking my wife." Marcus's controlled facade finally cracked, his voice rising to a shout. The word hung in the air between us, ugly and accusatory. I felt heat flood my cheeks, but not from shame, from anger. "How dare you?" I said quietly. Marcus whirled on me. "How dare I? You're the one who's been sneaking around, lying to me, making me look like a fool, making you look like a fool." I stood up slowly, my own voice gaining strength. "That's rich, Marcus, really rich." Eric stepped closer to me, protective. "Olivia doesn't deserve this. Don't tell me what my wife deserves." Marcus pointed at Eric aggressively. "You came into my home, ate at my table, and seduced my wife behind my back." "Your wife?" Eric's voice was dangerously low. "When was the last time you treated her like your wife? When was the last time you even noticed her?" "I notice plenty. I notice she's been lying to me for weeks. I notice she comes home smelling like another man's cologne. I notice she's been living a double life." "And what about your double life, Marcus?" The words came out of me calm and clear, cutting through their masculine posturing like a knife. Both men turned to stare at me. "What are you talking about?" Marcus demanded. "I'm talking about Lisa." The color drained from Marcus's face so completely he looked like he might faint. "I'm talking about your BMW in the parking lot behind the grocery store 3 weeks ago. I'm talking about Lisa straddling you in the front seat, her skirt hiked up around her waist, while you grabbed her ass like a teenager." Eric's eyes widened. Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I saw everything, Marcus. The way you kissed her neck, the way she moaned your name, the way you both looked so fucking satisfied afterward." "Olivia, that's not. Don't you dare lie to me." My voice cracked like a whip. "I watched you button your shirt. I watched her fix her lipstick in your rearview mirror. I watched you both laugh about something before you drove away, separately." The silence that followed was deafening. Eric was staring at Marcus with undisguised disgust. So when you talk about betrayal, I continued, my voice steady now. When you talk about lies and double lives, remember that you started this game, Marcus. You just don't like that I learned how to play it better than you. Marcus sank back into his chair, all his righteous anger deflated. How long have you known? Since the beginning, since that first night I went to the wine bar and met Eric. I looked at Eric, seeing understanding dawn in his eyes. I was devastated, broken, and looking for a way to numb the pain of discovering my husband was cheating on me with our housekeeper. Jesus, Eric breathed. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about revenge. It stopped being about getting even with Marcus. I turned to face Eric fully, my heart hammering. It became about finding someone who saw me, really saw me. For the first time in years, Eric moved closer, his hand finding mine. Olivia, don't touch her. Marcus jumped up again, but his protest sounded hollow now. You lost the right to make demands about who touches me the moment you put your hands on Lisa, I said firmly. You lost the right to act betrayed when you betrayed me first. It's different. How is it different, Marcus? He fumbled for words. Lisa means nothing. It's just physical, and somehow that makes it better. Eric's voice was incredulous. You think using someone for sex, while married, is less of a betrayal than Olivia finding genuine connection with someone. Stay out of this. No, Eric's hand tightened on mine. I won't stay out of it because I'm in love with her. The words hit the room like lightning. Marcus staggered backward. Even I felt my breath catch. I'm in love with your wife, Marcus. And unlike your sordid affair with the help, what Olivia and I have is real. It's honest. It's built on respect and genuine feeling, not just opportunity and boredom. Marcus looked between us, seeing the truth written on our faces. This is insane. You're both insane. No, Marcus. What's insane is you thinking you could have your cake and eat it too. What's insane is you believing you could betray me and then play the victim when I found happiness elsewhere. I pulled my wedding ring off my finger and set it on the dining room table with a soft clink. What are you doing? I'm ending this charade, all of it. The lies, the games, the pretending we're something we're not. I looked at him steadily. I want a divorce, Marcus. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. I turned to face both men. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Sometimes the person who gets caught isn't the only one who was playing a dangerous game. The truth was finally out, all of it, and despite the chaos swirling around us, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The silence that followed my declaration felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. I could feel the storm building around us, but for that moment, everything was perfectly still. Marcus was the first to break. You think you're so clever, don't you? His voice cracked with rage, playing the victim, while you were sneaking around behind my back. I wasn't playing anything, Marcus. I was surviving a marriage to someone who checked out emotionally years ago. Don't you dare turn this around on me. He lunged forward, and Eric stepped protectively in front of me. You cheated. You're the one who broke our vows. We both broke them, I said quietly. The difference is, I found something real. Marcus's face, contorted with fury. Real. You call destroying our marriage real. I call finding someone who actually sees me, who values me, who doesn't treat me like furniture in my own home. Yes, Marcus, I call that real. Eric's fingers intertwined with mine, steady and warm. Olivia, we should go. But Marcus wasn't finished. You want to know what's real, Eric? The fact that you just destroyed our business partnership. The Meridian development deal. Consider it dead. I hope your little romantic fantasy was worth losing everything. Eric's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Some things are worth more than money, Marcus. It's easy to say when you're not the one who built this company from nothing. Marcus turned back to me, his eyes wild. And you think you're walking away with half of everything. I'll make sure you get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Go ahead and try, I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. I have an excellent attorney. The lie came easily. I didn't have an attorney yet, but I would by morning. Marcus grabbed his scotch glass and hurled it against the wall. The crystal shattered, amber liquid streaming down the white paint like tears. Get out, he snarled. Both of you, get out of my house. It's my house too, Marcus, for now. But I was already moving toward the door, Eric's hand on my back. I'll be back tomorrow for my things. Don't bother. I'll have them packed and waiting on the curb. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the dining room where we'd shared so many meals in silence, where the weight of our dying marriage had pressed down on us like a suffocating blanket. Goodbye, Marcus. The cool night air hit my face as we stepped outside. My hands were shaking as I fumbled for my car keys. Hey, Eric caught my wrist gently. Are you okay? I laughed, but it came out as more of a sob. I just ended my marriage, potentially destroyed your business partnership, and I'm probably about to lose half of everything I own. No, Eric, I'm not okay. He pulled me into his arms right there on the front steps, and I let myself break down for just a moment. His cologne surrounded me, that familiar scent that had become my anchor in the chaos. We'll figure it out, he whispered against my hair. All of it together. What if we don't? What if this ruins everything? Then we'll build something new. I pulled back to look at him. You might lose everything because of me. I already told you, some things are worth more than money. His thumb brushed away a tear from my cheek. You're worth more than any deal, any partnership, any amount of money. My phone buzzed, then again and again. I pulled it out to find a flood of messages. Somehow, word was already spreading. Lisa must have been texting people from inside the house. My sister Sarah, is it true? Are you really getting divorced? My best friend Janet, I heard from Lisa about Marcus. I'm so sorry, honey. Are you okay? Marcus's brother. Whatever problems you and Marcus are having, dragging Eric into it is crossing a line. The vultures are already circling, I said, showing Eric the messages. He glanced at his own phone, which was also lighting up. Same here. Marcus works fast when he wants to control the narrative. Where am I supposed to go tonight? Come home with me. I shook my head. That will just make things worse. Give his lawyers more ammunition. Then let me get you a hotel room. The Meridian has a suite available. But the irony isn't lost on me, I said with a weak smile. Staying at the hotel that might cost you your business partnership. Stop worrying about the business. I'll handle Marcus and the fallout. An hour later, I was standing in a luxury suite at the Meridian, looking out at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. My overnight bag sat on the king-size bed. I'd grabbed it from my car, the emergency bag I'd packed weeks ago when I first started meeting Eric. Somehow, I'd known this day would come. Eric had wanted to stay, but I'd convinced him to go home. I needed time to think, to process what had just happened. My phone rang. Sarah. Olivia, what the hell is going on? Lisa called me sobbing, saying something about you having an affair. It's complicated, Sarah. Is it true about Eric? I sank into the plush armchair by the window. Yes. Oh, honey, how long? A few months since I found out about Marcus and Lisa. Wait, what? Marcus and Lisa? I'd forgotten that not everyone knew about Marcus's affair. Lisa must have conveniently left part out of her version. Marcus has been sleeping with our maid for over a year, Sarah. I caught them in his car. Jesus Christ. And you didn't tell me. I didn't know what to do. I was humiliated, angry, lost. Then I met Eric and love. Yes, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Are you happy, Olivia? For the first time in years, are you actually happy? The question caught me off guard. Was I happy, despite the chaos, despite the uncertainty, despite everything I was about to lose? Yes, I whispered. God help me, yes. Then screw what anyone else thinks. You deserve happiness after what Marcus put you through. But not everyone would be as understanding as Sarah. Over the next few hours, the calls and messages kept coming. Some friends supported me. Others condemned my affair, while conveniently ignoring Marcus's betrayal. Family members demanded explanations. Business associates chose sides. By midnight, I was emotionally drained, but strangely peaceful. I'd lost a marriage that had been dead for years. I might lose half my assets. Some friendships might not survive the scandal. But I'd gained something too. I'd found my voice. I'd found someone who loved me for who I was, not who he needed me to be. I'd found the courage to stop pretending. My phone buzzed with one final message of the night. Eric, sweet dreams, beautiful. Tomorrow we start building our new life together. Read. I smiled, setting the phone aside and looking out at the city lights. The woman who had walked into that dining room tonight was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who refused to settle for less than she deserved. The fallout was far from over. But for the first time in years, I was looking forward to tomorrow. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my suite, casting golden patterns across the king-size bed. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with possibilities and consequences. Eric's message from last night still glowed on my phone screen. That little red heart emoji, somehow both thrilling and terrifying. I was halfway through my morning coffee when he knocked. I knew it was him before I even looked through the peephole. Something about the confident, measured rhythm of his knock. "Good morning, beautiful." Eric stepped inside, already dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark jeans. Even in casual clothes, he commanded attention. I brought breakfast. He set down a bag from the hotel's restaurant, but I could barely focus on food. The reality of our situation was settling in like morning fog. "Eric, we need to talk." I curled up in the plush armchair, wrapping my silk robe tighter around me. "I know." He sat on the edge of the bed, his dark eyes serious. "The whole city's talking about last night. My phone's been ringing since 6 a.m. And my attorney says Marcus is planning to sue me for interfering with his marriage. He's trying to freeze some of my business accounts." Eric's jaw tightened. "But I don't care, Olivia. Let him try to destroy me. It'll be worth it if we're together." The fierce determination in his voice should have thrilled me. Instead, it sent a chill down my spine. "Eric," I started, but he was already moving toward me, kneeling beside my chair. "Listen to me." His hands found mine, warm and steady. "I've been thinking all night. We don't have to stay here and deal with this mess. I have business contacts in Seattle, connections in Denver. We could disappear, start fresh somewhere new. Run away, start over," he corrected. "Just you and me, away from Marcus's threats and everyone's judgment. I can rebuild my business anywhere. You can pursue your photography seriously. Remember how your eyes lit up when you talked about that gallery showing." His thumb traced circles on my wrist, and for a moment, I let myself imagine it. Eric and me in some beautiful city, free from the wreckage of my marriage, free to explore this connection without secrets or lies. "We could be in Denver by tonight," he continued, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that always made my pulse race. I already looked at flights. "There's a penthouse apartment available in the Arts District. You'd love the light for your photography." I pulled my hands free, needing space to think. "You planned all this without asking me." "I'm asking now." He stood, running his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd grown to recognize when he was frustrated. "Olivia, what we have is real. Don't let Marcus destroy it before we've had a chance to see what we could be together." That the word "together" hung in the air between us. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at the chance. Hell, 2 days ago, I might have said yes. But something had shifted inside me during those long, sleepless hours. Maybe it was the way Sarah's question had echoed in my mind. "Are you happy?" Or maybe it was the realization that for the first time in years, I'd made a choice purely for myself. "Eric," I stood, moving to the window to put distance between us. The city stretched out below, full of possibilities I'd never allowed myself to consider. What if I said no? Silence. When I turned back, his expression had gone carefully neutral. "You won't," he said finally. You're not the type to give up on something this good. How do you know what type I am? The question came out sharper than I intended. 6 months ago, I was a devoted wife who turned a blind eye to her husband's affairs. A month ago, I was sneaking around hotel rooms like a teenager. Yesterday, I publicly humiliated my husband in front of half the city. Maybe I don't know what type I am either. Eric's confident facade cracked slightly. Olivia, what are you saying? I walked to the dresser, picking up a small silver frame, a photo of me from college before I met Marcus. I barely recognized the young woman staring back at me, all bright eyes and wild dreams. I'm saying maybe I need to figure out who I am when I'm not defined by a relationship with a man. The words felt foreign on my tongue, but also strangely liberating. First Marcus, now you. I keep jumping from one man's vision of my life to another. That's not fair. Eric's voice was tight with controlled anger. I'm not Marcus. I see you, the real you. I love your intelligence, your strength, your passion for art. I'm not trying to change you, but you're trying to save me. I set the photo down gently. And maybe I need to save myself. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. Outside, the city hummed with morning traffic, people going about their lives, while mine hung in the balance. So, what are you saying? Eric's voice was barely above a whisper. That last night meant nothing. That we meant nothing. I turned to face him fully, my heart breaking at the vulnerability in his eyes. Last night meant everything. You helped me remember who I used to be, who I could be again. But Eric, we started in darkness, in secrets and revenge and pain. Maybe that's not the foundation for something real. We could make it real. He took a step toward me, then stopped. Give us a chance, Olivia. Give me a chance to love you the way you deserve. Tears stung my eyes, but I held my ground. The way I deserve is to love myself first, to know who I am when I'm not someone's wife, or someone's secret, or someone's salvation. Eric stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working as he processed my words. Finally, he nodded slowly. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, he said quietly. Stronger than Marcus ever deserved. Strong enough to walk away from something that feels incredible, because I know it's not right. Not yet. I wiped away a tear that had escaped. Maybe someday, when I've figured out who Olivia is on her own, we could try again. But right now, you need to choose yourself. Yes, he moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice, even if it's killing me. After he left, I sank back into the armchair, emotionally drained, but oddly at peace. My phone buzzed with another message, probably another friend wanting details about last night's drama. Instead, I opened my laptop and began typing. Dear Marcus, I've retained Helen Fitzgerald as my divorce attorney. All future communication should go through her office. It was time to stop running towards something and start building something instead. Something that was entirely mine. subscribe for more dramatic confessions like this one, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself over everything else. 6 months later, I stood in my new apartment's living room, adjusting the final piece of artwork on the wall. The space was everything Marcus, and I had never been bright, open, and entirely mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the room with natural light, highlighting the carefully curated furniture I'd selected piece by piece. My phone buzzed on the marble kitchen counter. Helen's name appeared on the screen. "Olivia, the final papers are ready for pickup. Congratulations, you're officially free." Free. The word still sent a thrill through me. The divorce had been surprisingly straightforward once Marcus realized I wasn't going to be vindictive. I'd asked for what was fair: half our assets, my photography equipment, and my dignity intact. Nothing more, nothing less. Thank you, Helen, for everything. You made it easy by staying classy throughout the whole process. Not everyone does. After hanging up, I walked to my home office, a luxury I'd never had in Marcus's house. My interior design business had taken off faster than I'd dared hope. Word of mouth from satisfied clients had led to a waiting list, and tonight's gallery opening would showcase my latest project, a complete redesign of the downtown boutique hotel where Eric and I had once met. The irony wasn't lost on me. My laptop displayed the final presentation slides: clean lines, warm textures, spaces that felt both sophisticated and welcoming. I'd poured my newfound sense of self into every room, every color choice, every lighting fixture. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but through the peephole, I saw a familiar figure. Stomach drop. Marcus stood in the hallway, holding a bouquet of white roses, my former favorite flowers. He looked older, tired around the edges in a way that expensive suits couldn't hide. "Hello, Marcus," I said, opening the door, but not inviting him in. "Olivia." His voice was softer than I remembered, almost pleading. "You look incredible." I was wearing a simple black dress and had been experimenting with a new hairstyle, shorter, more confident. "Thank you. What do you need?" I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. He held out the roses. Lisa and I, it ended badly. She was just using me to get ahead, and I was too stupid to see it. But you were real. We were real. I didn't take the flowers. We were a lot of things, Marcus, but real wasn't one of them, at least not toward the end. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust, but we had 15 years together. That has to count for something. His eyes searched my face desperately. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, moving somewhere new, starting over completely. 6 months ago, hearing him beg would have given me satisfaction. Now, I felt only a mild sadness for the man I'd once loved. "I appreciate that you came here," I said gently, "and I hope you find happiness. But that happiness isn't with me. Olivia, please, I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I know you are. and I forgive you." The words surprised us both, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. "I'm not the same person who was married to you, Marcus. I don't want to be." He stared at me for a long moment, the roses drooping in his hands. "Is there someone else?" "Eric." "If there's me," I said simply. "Just me, and that's enough." After he left, I poured myself a glass of the good wine, a bottle I'd bought to celebrate signing my first major client, and sat in my favorite chair by the window. The city stretched out below me, full of possibilities I was finally ready to explore. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric. "Saw the preview article about tonight's opening. Incredible work. You should be proud." I smiled and typed back, "Thank you. It feels good to build something beautiful." His response came quickly. "You always did. You just needed the right space to do it." Eric and I had found our rhythm over the past months. We'd run into each other occasionally at industry events, and the attraction was still there, would probably always be there. But we'd both respected the boundary I'd set. He'd started dating someone new, a marketing executive who made him laugh. I was genuinely happy for him. I checked the time, 3 hours until the gallery opening. My stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. This wasn't just about showcasing my work. It was about celebrating who I'd become. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman I was still getting to know. Confident, independent, unafraid to take up space. I applied lipstick carefully, choosing a bold red that the old Olivia would have called too much. The old Olivia had worried about being too much of everything. My phone rang. Lisa, my assistant and new friend. Not the maid Lisa, but a vibrant woman in her 20s who'd responded to my job posting with enthusiasm that reminded me what passion looked like. "Olivia, the caterers just arrived at the gallery. Everything looks perfect. Are you ready for this?" More than ready. An hour later, I stood in the gallery space I'd transformed, watching people move through the rooms with appreciation and wonder. Local design bloggers snapped photos, potential clients introduced themselves, and friends I'd made through yoga classes and art workshops offered congratulations. Olivia Rodriguez, interior design visionary, announced the gallery owner, raising her champagne glass. "Tonight we celebrate not just beautiful spaces, but the courage to reimagine what home can be." As the crowd applauded, I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with wine or praise. This was what contentment felt like, not the desperate happiness of new romance or the bitter satisfaction of revenge, but the quiet joy of becoming exactly who you were meant to be. A young couple approached me, eyes bright with excitement. "We just bought our first house," the woman said. "Would you be available to help us make it feel like home?" "I'd love to," I replied, and meant it completely. Later, as the evening wound down and the last guests filtered out, I stood alone in the space I'd created. The lighting cast warm shadows on the walls, and every piece of furniture seemed to glow with purpose. My phone buzzed one final time. a text from an unknown number. Saw the article about your opening. Proud of you. E. I smiled and deleted the message without responding. Some chapters were meant to stay closed, even the beautiful ones. Outside, the city hummed with late-night energy. I had a choice: go home to my perfect apartment and my perfect solitude, or walk the streets and see where the night might lead. I chose to walk, not because I was looking for something, but because I finally knew that whatever I found, I'd be strong enough to handle it. The woman who'd caught her husband cheating and seduced his friend was gone. In her place was someone infinitely more dangerous. A woman who didn't need saving, didn't need revenge, and didn't need anyone's approval to know her own worth. I was Olivia Rodriguez, interior designer, business owner, and architect of my own happiness. And this was just the beginning.